Chakshunmilitam dana tasmai Shri Guve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakaramayam Dadati Svapadantikam Namam Vishnupada Kashabasa Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavari Pasatari Satarine Vanchakapa Jubasha Kripa Sinibhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so we will continue with our discussion from yesterday. And yes, those of you who would like to switch on your video so I can see you a little bit to make this Zoom event a little bit more personal. Welcome, Janeshwar Prabhu. Thank you for joining us. Always nice to see a few known faces. Yes, for those who were not there yesterday, let me just, and Jai Krishna Prabhu is also there. Thank you so much from New Vrindavan. So yeah, let me just quickly, for those who were not here yesterday, first of all, let me introduce you to Eldar Prabhu. He is my technical assistant. And the questions you please write to him. And usually once in the middle, and then of course also at the end, I stop for some discussion question answer session. My humble request is always, please keep the questions to those topics we have discussed, because there is 2 more sessions coming. On Wednesday, we have another session, and then the last one will be on Saturday. So there will be still all kinds of topics coming. So please don't jump ahead and ask something which we haven't discussed yet. And yeah, and usually we sift the questions a little bit, especially in the middle of the seminar. And then usually at the end, I leave extra time so that really everybody feels their questions are addressed. And so whatever it takes, I'm happy to stay on. Yesterday we were going to 20 minutes longer. I just wanted to tell you 10 to 7, but this doesn't mean much to you if you're from a different time zone. So we were simply going 20 minutes longer and just still talking, also a little more personal or something. Yes, and the link to the materials Eldar Prabhu is announcing every time before the seminar starts, so you can download the materials. It's quite helpful. There's just key points just to keep the attention better and to have something afterwards to remember what we actually talked about, because Kali Yuga memory is not the best. So I always like to give out these materials. Yeah, so let us quickly remember, yesterday we were introducing the whole topic of false ego, how it comes about, how it affects us, and so on. And we were giving the comparison of caps or hats we are wearing, the roles we are playing, they're like caps and hats. And we have all different hats we are wearing at different times. But the problem is we identify with them. We think this is really me. And this comes about because we get some little gratification, some subtle sense enjoyment, prestige and recognition and so on. So therefore we get attached to these caps. And yeah, we talked quite about all different points. Maybe, is it possible for you, Eldar Prabhu, to give the link for yesterday's materials for those who were not there? that, you know, those who were not there yesterday, they can download it. Even though the materials, of course, still have to be presented and unpacked, but it gives you some idea of what we were discussing yesterday. So as a little addition to yesterday's discussion, you know, where we were saying the hats we become attached to, we identify with, and even within Krishna consciousness, of course, we were saying this doesn't stop, you know, that we identify with these designations. It doesn't stop just by simply taking up the process of Krishna consciousness. So to illustrate this a little bit, we can just take a very common example from our life in ISKCON, that let us imagine a person has a managerial position. You know, he is the head pujari or temple president or whatever it may be. So, and then one day devotees decide that actually maybe somebody else should do the service. You know, so if we simply want to serve, if we are not attached to this title and this designation, then this will not be such a big issue. Then we will say, okay, fine, all I want to do is serve. So if somebody else can do this service better, no problem. So just please tell me, how can I serve? You know? So then this will be no issue actually to exchange a person on a position. But when there's attachment there, this can become a whole thing, you know, just to put somebody else in the position and remove the other person. This can be a whole big issue in a community. I'm sure everybody who's been a little while around and is going to have experienced this, you know. So then sometimes there's so many politics going on, and, you know, the person is more or less, you know, refusing to step down, and so it becomes a whole big thing which creates so much disturbance in our communities, and for the individual persons involved, so much disturbance, so much anxiety. So this is just a little example to illustrate, you know, how this false ego, meaning identifying with these designations, is giving us so much trouble and miseries and disturbances, you know. And yesterday we were also discussing, we were quoting the verse 1858, I believe, you know, where Krishna is giving us these two paths basically for acting, you know, that he says, okay, if you act under my direction in consciousness of me, then you overcome all the troubles of and tribulations of material existence. But if you act under false ego, not hearing me, then you will be lost, you know. So, and we were quite in depth, we were discussing that there are two motivating forces. And one is the motivating force of the false ego, wanting to achieve a certain title, a certain position, and then there's the other motivating force, which should be the motivating force of a Vaishnava, that we simply want to serve, nothing else. All I want to serve. And then we were saying from there, actually, Krishna arranges everything. You know, that is kind of the more transcendental motivating force, that we simply want to serve. And Paramatma in the heart witnesses that. And then Krishna makes all the right arrangements at the right time. All the different doors are opening at the right time, and the devotee can nicely progress and develop him or herself. Whereas a materialist, you know, has the ego motivation of striving for a certain goal. I want to become a pujari, a preacher, guru, sannyasi, this, that. And I was explaining that actually we need some empowerment. We have to be ordered from above. The order actually has to come from above in our development, in our journey, that senior devotees or guru recognizes, oh yes, this person actually can fulfill this and this role and do this and this service. So the order should come from above, you know. Of course, we may also maybe voice certain desires or plans or something, but yeah, the empowerment, the order has to come about from above, and then we can do certain services by the strength of that empowerment and those blessings, and not so much on this ego motivation of, you know, chalking out a whole career in Krishna consciousness or something. This is not actually the way we should be motivated. And yesterday we were discussing at length, you know, that the ego motivation initially also has some good aspect, because at least it gets us going. Whereas, you know, because ego motivation is, in our neophyte stage, it is a stronger motivating force than the motivation of wanting to serve and please Krishna and Prabhupada and the devotees. That motivating force, unfortunately, is at least in the beginning stage of spiritual development, it is not so strongly developed, you know. So then the ego is at least getting us to serve like that. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to repeat the whole topic from yesterday, but just to add that little example, you know, that actually if we have that motivating force of simply wanting to serve and please the devotees, then such a thing as giving up a certain position and letting somebody else do it shouldn't be an issue, not at all, you know, because we only want to serve, nothing else. So, but, you know, if we are motivated by the designation and the upadi and so on, the false ego motivation, then we cling on to the titles and positions because they give that ego a certain gratification, you know, that honor, that prestige, and so false ego demands this kind of satisfaction and gratification. And yeah, but if we stay on that path, then sooner or later, we will experience miseries and troubles and suffering in some way or other. So now, as I mentioned already yesterday, the main two tracks of dissolving the false ego is chanting the holy name on one side. And we will come back to that on the last session on next Saturday. And parallel, Vaishnav etiquette and culture. This is our saving grace. Vaishnav etiquette and culture, these are Krishna's recommendations, how we can transform our ego patterns of behaviors. We were discussing this in quite some detail yesterday. So today, I would like to start with the first aspect of Vaishnav etiquette and culture, which helps us to transform our ego patterns of behavior. So, and because this false ego is so near and dear to us, and we are hanging on to the demands for the satisfaction of the ego. That's why we like to protect and defend the false ego. This protecting and defending mentality is very, very strong. So now we probably have heard all many times that eating, sleeping, mating, defending, these are the animal propensities, which actually should be minimized as much as possible. So eating, sleeping, mating, we talk quite a lot about those, but we don't talk so much about the defending, you know? You don't really hear much about this, that this defending propensity is also an animal propensity, which should be subdued and kept to a minimum. So, and of course, there's gross defense, there's subtle defense, you know. We may think, yes, defending is physically beating somebody or shooting back or whatever. But no, what we mean here in regards to the false ego, it is the subtle form of defense verbally, that we like to answer back, we like to be right, we like to have the last word, and we like to be right even if we are wrong. So that is the defending propensity, which has to be subdued. And in fact, you know, there is the Vaishnava etiquette rule there that a Vaishnava should never defend him or herself. We should defend other devotees when we see they are unfairly treated, but we should never defend ourselves. And this is something which is not so widely understood and talked about, I feel, you know, because, yeah, especially here in the Western world, we don't really know about this so much, I think, because we can, if we look a little bit, you know, and we are a bit introspective and observant, we almost every day, we defend ourselves in some way, you know, but, you know, already but means, no, hey, this is defending, you know, or we find excuses, very common mechanisms of defense is, first of all, we point the finger at others. Oh, we are so good at that, you know. Oh, no, it was him, it was her, you know, or we blame the external situation. Oh, it was because of this and because of that, you know. So this blaming others, blaming external situation, this is one of the main and foremost defending propensities we engage in. Or we find excuses, you know. Oh my God, you know, this, because when we engage in this kind of defense, what do we defend? Of course, the false ego. It's all false ego stuff, you know, it really is. So that's why a very important rule of Vaishnava etiquette is that Vaishnava should never defend himself or herself, but we should defend others. So usually it's funny to observe, usually we do the opposite. We defend ourselves, but when somebody else is in trouble, oh, we don't say anything. We shut up. We look the other way. We don't want to get involved. We don't want to stick our neck out. And oh, this may damage my relationships. And so we are quiet, you know. But actually, we should do the opposite. We should defend other persons and not ourselves. So I'm very clear, if everybody would follow that rule of etiquette, there would be even no need for us to defend ourselves, because surely somebody else would step in and defend us, you know? So no need to defend ourselves if there is a good reason to defend. Yeah, so this is a really important Vaishnava etiquette rule, especially important towards seniors. Oh, this is considered to be completely uncultured behavior. If we answer back and defend towards a senior person, or especially towards guru, oh my God, terrible, terrible. I mean, Prabhupada used to get mad when people were defending themselves towards him, you know, when Prabhupada was saying something and then devotees would say, but, you know, Prabhupada would really chastise them like anything, you know, like anything. Actually, when I put this book together, False Ego, Our Constant Companion and Troublemaker, I asked Hari Sori Prabhu, I know him quite well personally, so I wrote him a message. I often ask him to send me some stories, and I verify certain anecdotes with him and so on. So I asked him, oh, can you send me a story where you may be defended towards Prabhupada, you know, because whoever knows Hari Sori Prabhu, at least 30 years ago, he used to be quite a strong character. So he sent me this funny story back, which I want to share with you. So as we all know, Hari Sori Prabhu was traveling for quite a while with Prabhupada. And I can't remember where it was, I think somewhere in India. Hari Sori Prabhu was with Prabhupada in the room. And then Prabhupada asked him, you please give me the pink folder from the Almirah, from the cupboard, the pink folder. So Hari Sori went to the cupboard, looked in the cupboard, and he said, Prabhupada, there is no pink folder. And Prabhupada repeated, give me the pink folder. And Hari Sori again, Prabhupada, there is no pink folder. So Prabhupada repeated, third time. So then Prabhupada, then Hari Sori Prabhu said, oh, Prabhupada, there is a red folder. So, and Prabhupada repeated, give me the pink folder. And then Prabhupada, and then Hari Sori Prabhu got that folder and he gave it to Prabhupada. And when he gave the folder to Prabhupada, he said to him, Prabhupada, it's red. And Prabhupada was blasting him. Oh my God, he gave him a 10-minute lecture, you know, really heavily chastising him, saying to him, I mean, he was saying to him, so you became very expert in defending yourself, you rascal. And he was just, my God, he was really, you know, really hammering him. But yeah, I mean, this is a very nice example, you know, of the false ego wanting to be right. Prabhupada, it's red, it's not pink, it's red. And such behavior towards Guru is so ridiculous and outrageous and inappropriate and actually offensive, really, you know. So, and I mean, yes, we may be asking, so, all right, is this really always like that? What about if Guru chastises us unfairly for something which we didn't even do? Well, the answer is, even if Guru chastises us unfairly, disciple is simply meant to shut up and accept it. The mood of the disciple is, all right, let me just accept this as an opportunity to let go of my false ego, even if I haven't done it. And the mood is, well, there were so many other situations where I should have received some chastisement, but I didn't. So now let me just accept it instead of the chastisement which I missed out on and didn't receive. That is actually the mood and attitude. We are not meant to answer back and say, oh, but it wasn't me, and actually it was like that, and da. Yeah, yes. And I mean, Guru can also ask other devotees, get some information, or if other devotees hear that the Guru chastised this person, as we said, we should defend other people and not ourselves. So then other personalities, they can go up to Guru and say, oh, actually, by the way, it was like this and this and this and so on, you know. If really everybody follows that etiquette of defending others, then surely somebody will step in and you know, defend us if it is required. And if not, doesn't matter. You know, we should simply accept it as an exercise, an opportunity to let go of these ego's demands of wanting justice and you know, being right. And because really, you know, already one day later, who cares whether we were right or wrong or this or that, you know, definitely at the moment of death has no significance who was right, who was wrong, whether it was fair or unfair. My God, no significance. You know, it's just all ego stuff. You know, yeah. I mean, in regards to gross offense, defense, there are these instructions in Bhagavad Gita, you know, that we are allowed to defend ourselves if we are attacked by the 6 aggressors, right? Yes. So 6 aggressors meaning giving poison, setting fire, being attacked by a deadly weapon, somebody plunders our riches, somebody occupies our land, somebody kidnaps the wife. So then we are allowed to defend, you know. But I mean, these things don't happen every day. They surely don't happen every day. So, but what happens every day is that we are in some provocative situation, you know, and the ego steps in and pushes us to give this satisfaction to the ego of being right and defending. And that has to be given up. I mean, I remember once I was giving this seminar in Mayapur, and I was just discussing this topic in that session. So then after that session, I can't even remember what the topic was. I spoke to one Prabhu privately, one young devotee, Bhakta. I talked to him privately about something, and he started to defend like anything. And I said to him, Prabhu, we just discussed it. Don't defend yourself, no need. But he couldn't even hear. He just kept on defending me. Even just directly after the session, you know. I mean, that's how strong the ego is pushing us. We can't even control the tongue. The ego demands that gratification, you know, and we just follow it and jump into it and act on it, you know. It's hard. It's not easy to control, actually, you know, because the ego demands in such a strong way, you know. Yes. Yeah, so this defending mentality, we have to be careful, you know. We have to be careful. Yeah, in the Western world, as I mentioned, it is not being preached much, you know. So if somebody, especially when it comes from a senior devotee, if we are, you know, instructed or guided, or somebody tells us something, we should not defend. We should not, I know, and do, you know, this, oh my God, you know. So then we just hang on to the ego, defend it, protect it, you know, but instead of letting it go and dissolving it, we do the opposite, you know, we just defend and protect. You know? And I mean, it's interesting. The false ego has such a contaminating effect. You know, let us imagine somebody comes up to us in some ego mood and instructs us, you know, and then we can feel immediately our own ego flares up, you know. It's almost like an infection, you know, like the coronavirus, contagious completely. And then we react, and then the other person reacts like that. So we can say that the ego almost bounces back and forwards from heart to heart, you know, and aggravates us. And yeah, and that's how arguments come about, you know. And I mean, this is happening on all levels, even international level. This is how wars come about, you know. Then one leader of a country does this, and then the other one reacts, and then, oh, gee, I have to respond to that. Some sanction this, that, you know, so this, and then it escalates. So it's just all ego, all false ego, completely. Or whoever has been to India, maybe you have had the situation when you are in a big city in Delhi in a rickshaw, in one of the CNG rickshaws, you know, and there's traffic jam. So, and then one rickshaw driver comes too close to the other rickshaw driver. And then immediately one of them starts screaming at the guy, "Oh, can't you see? Get out of my way." And then he responds, "Buh." And then sometimes they jump out of their rickshaws and they have a fist fight in the middle of the street. You know, you ever experienced that? Maybe. I mean, I've seen it many times, you know, yeah, many times. And then the policeman comes with a big stick and he just beats them and tries to separate them, you know. Yeah, so in that way you can see how the ego, you know, bounces back and forwards. Another incident we have this a lot is over internet, this debating, you know. When people debate over internet, or they say something, you know, challenging to us, and especially when many people get the message, everybody reads this, so then we feel, oh my God, I have to answer to this. If I don't answer, then everybody thinks this is right, you know. So then we answer. So, and then the other side, you know, twists the whole thing around, makes a weapon out of it, boom, shoots it back at us. So then again, we think, oh, well, I have to answer to this. I cannot keep quiet, you know. And like that, it goes back and forwards, back and forwards. So contaminating. I'm sure you have also had this experience. You have this really ugly, horrible feeling in the heart. This is exactly the effect of the false ego. When we have this ugly feeling in the heart and the mind goes in circles, agitated, goes in circles around and around and around, and we can't drop it. It sticks in our mind and tortures us. So this is exactly the contamination of the false ego. So as devotees, we should not engage in these disputes over internet. It is never ending. It goes on and on and on. It is not uplifting for anybody, not for ourselves, not for the other person, not for all those who hear it. It's such a contaminating way of communication. Better just to withdraw, stay out of it. Hare Krishna, and just drop it, you know, let them go on and not respond. Switch off. Hare Krishna. It's never ending because, you know, this kind of debating, I mean, in the book Bhakti Loka, which is by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he talks about all the different kinds of prajalpa. And he lists debating under prajalpa. Because when we have these debates, the goal is to prove I'm right, he's wrong. You know, so it is really this ego thing there of wanting to be right. It's not that we are inquiring in submission and humility and we want to find out the truth. No, we simply want to, you know, establish our opinion being right. This is the whole goal of this kind of discussion. And this is just not purifying. It is, you know, feeding the ego and aggravating and agitating and so on. So as devotees, better to completely withdraw of these kind of discussions and stay out of it. Yes. So now with defending, before we ask for questions, sometimes devotees ask, but I mean, not defending, isn't there some borders to it, you know, like in material life? If we don't defend, then people will just all walk over us, you know, and we will be the loser. And how can we, you know, survive in life without defending? Well, even in material terms, one has to very carefully consider whether it's worth it defending. Yes. Even in material terms. And I want to share one little story from my own life, which really illustrates this. This is some years ago. I can't even remember how many years. Oh yeah, it is 10, 12 years ago, something like that. It so happened that the German taxation department charged me some tax, which was completely unjustified. I was not meant to pay this. They were just trying to whip me off, basically. And it was not a little bit of money, it was about 1,500 euros. And they sent me some letter that I was supposed to pay this tax. And because I was traveling, I missed the 3 months where I could object to this, order of paying. So by the time I got the letter, somebody else opened the letter for me and received it, because it came with registered mail, because, important letters like that, you have to actually sign that you received it. So somebody else received it on my behalf, and they opened the letter, but they didn't clearly tell me what was the content. So, I had no clue that they were asking me to pay 1,500 euros. So I just said, oh, yeah, can wait until I come back, so, and I missed this 3 months period where I could object. So, and then, of course, when I received this letter, when I finally got it and read it, I was furious. I was, completely, I was really angry, and I was thinking, how can they be like this, charging me this, which was completely unjustified. So I rang the taxation department, and immediately I started arguing with this lady there, and she was saying, well, you can take the issue to court, and you didn't object, and I could immediately feel, my whole peace of mind was gone, and I was completely agitated. I couldn't change anymore. All I could think is of this whole situation. It was just completely affecting my whole, my whole sadhana, So, and then I remembered a nice purport from the Bhagavatam, which I want to read you. You actually do have the number there on your materials, but I didn't write the whole thing. This is the verse and purport to 4th canto, 19th chapter, verse 34. The verse goes as follows, 4:19:34. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. So now comes Prabhupada's purport. Sometimes the saintly or very religious person also has to meet with reversals in life. Such incidents should be taken as providential, meaning, oh, well, Krishna's arrangement. Although there may be sufficient cause for being unhappy, one should avoid counteracting such reversals. For the more we become implicated in rectifying such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest regions of material anxiety. Lord Krishna has also advised us in this connection. One should tolerate things instead of becoming agitated. So in my whole story with the taxation department, I remembered this purport, because, I've got it in my little verse book and I sometimes use it in classes. So this purport came to my mind, and I could immediately feel, how Prabhupada is so true in what he describes. As soon as I was trying to rectify this whole situation and go against it, my mind was just completely, how Prabhupada says, I entered into the darkest region of material anxiety, exactly that, you know. So much so that I couldn't even chant anymore, you know. And so I just decided, okay, let him have it. Let him have it. You know, I just paid the €1,500. Let it be, you know. Obviously, I owe them something somewhere. I haven't paid much tax in my life, you know, because I'm not even registered in Germany as living. That was the whole thing. I'm not even registered here as living here, so I'm actually not. I don't have to pay tax in Germany. But I just thought, no, forget it. I'm not going to take them to court. And oh my God, what for? You know. So let them have it. But it took me a few days, you know, to let go of this, you know, pushing of the ego for justice and fairness and, oh, how can they? And what is this? You know, it took me a few days just to let it go, you know, and let it go by and let them have it and, you know, just move on, you know. So, I mean, the reason why I'm sharing this is to make this point that even sometimes in you know, material dealings, it's good to really think whether it's all worthwhile, you know. And yeah, I mean, this is my little motto or so, that very often I say to myself, at the moment of death, is this important? You know, and then I realized, no, almost nothing is important at that moment, you know. So who cares at the moment of death, whether I've paid €1,500 or not? Who cares? It has no significance, doesn't matter, you know. Already now, who cares? Already a week later, who cares, you know. So that always for me puts everything in perspective, you know, that we can see, yeah, I mean, all these things which we think are now so important at the moment of death, they have very, very little importance. And what counts at that moment is our relationship with Krishna, you know, how much we can focus, how much we are investing into our sadhana. That's the main thing. So, you know, it's not worth it sacrificing one's peace of mind and one's sadhana and, you know, one's spiritual life just for some things which come in our way, you know, on our journey there, you know. As Prabhupada says, you know, sometimes a saintly or very religious person also has to meet with reversals in life, and such incidents should be taken as providential. So the Prabhupada says it, you know, very nicely. Yeah, so, you know, I don't want to make an absolute statement that by no means one should defend, you know, but at least we should be very mindful and very cautious and looking, is it really worthwhile, you know? I mean, we should, of course, defend Krishna, Guru, ISKCON, you know. Prabhupada was also leading so many court cases there and battles and all that, but that was not for himself, but for ISKCON, for Krishna's sake, you know. Yes. So yeah, but we have to be very careful and really look from all angles, and again get good advice from a mentor, as we said yesterday. You know, while we have material attachments and desires, very difficult to really assess ourselves and the situation objectively, because the ego, you know, blocks us and blocks our vision, and we can't hear, we can't see. So that's why we do need to take guidance and advice, you know, from a coach, a mentor, who has a bit more of a clear vision and who is aloof to the situation which we are facing and so on. And it has to be very carefully looked at whether it's worthwhile fighting or whether it's just better to tolerate and just let it go by and just move on and, you know, drop it, you know. Yes. Yeah, I mean, all right, maybe I'll quickly see before, you know, I wanted to say a few more words about the importance of tolerance. But maybe we just stop here now for now and see if there are any questions, only about what we discussed so far. Elder Prabhu, do we have anything?
Hare Krishna. Yeah, we have some questions. I'm not sure, maybe this is one answered already, but I will read it aloud. From Chaturika Sakhi Mataji.
Okay.
What if some devotee changes his or her attitude towards us without saying nothing? Should we approach the devotee to fix their relationship, or just not say nothing because we don't want to defend?
Well, I mean, fixing the relationship doesn't necessarily mean we have to defend. A better way to fix relationships is maybe to apologize for some misunderstanding or taking the humble position or something. So defending, is never really, we have to be very careful. I mean, I cannot even think of a situation where defending will fix a relationship, And there's also a difference, and of course it's a very subtle difference, whether we defend or whether, especially when we are maybe asked, when we humbly explain, But usually the problem is we think we are just humbly explaining, but we are actually defending. That's the problem. So, but of course, if a person asks us or something, then of course we can humbly explain, But otherwise, fixing a relationship, we maybe can share our feelings in a situation or something. But it should be done without this mood of defending. That's the problem, And this is very hard for us as long as our ego is demanding this so much, this gratification of wanting to be right and so on, Yeah, I don't know. Does that make it a bit clearer, Chichoika Madhuji?
Okay. Hare Krishna, please accept my obedience. The thing is that the person doesn't say anything. The thing is that the person is not talking, is not blaming, it's a totally change of attitude, and I don't know if approach the person to say, hey, what happened, or tolerate, like you said before.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's a bit of a different topic, It's more like a question of communication, and it's not so related to this topic of false ego, But I mean, my motto is always to go up to people and talk to them and clear the atmosphere, rather than having something hanging in the air there and nobody talks about it. Why not just go up and say, oh, have I done something to you, and what's wrong?
Yes.
And you're not so much talking anymore to me or something, and I'm sorry if I did anything to offend you or something, So I find clear communication always the best, because see, very often we have some picture in our head about the other person, and unless we communicate, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to adjust our picture in our head to actual situation, because everybody experiences the same situation very differently. Everybody hears something very differently. So we have to communicate so we can adjust our picture to other people's pictures and maybe to actual fact. And I'm sure we all have had this experience. We imagine something And then when we go and talk to the person, we realize, oh, actually, it was not like that after all. And actually, it was like this and this, and things are not so bad, actually. And I imagined all kinds of things and jumped to conclusions and all that, you know. So communication is the main and foremost way how we can adjust our picture to, actual reality, you know. Actually, I just remember one thing which I didn't share in regards to defending mechanisms, that the intelligence gets so contaminated by the false ego. You know, if there's a situation and we defend, we want to be right, and then the ego affects the intelligence, and the intelligence sometimes really twists things around just to give the ego that gratification that we were right and others were wrong. You know, have you ever experienced this? You know, that you sometimes, you know, when there was some incident, whatever it may have been, and you hear a person talk, you wonder, are they talking about the same incident that I'm talking about? You know, they experienced it very differently, and so differently that you almost think, well, maybe the person is making it up and lying maybe or something. You know, this is a whole different version of what actually happened. You know, this is quite a common occurrence. You know, so what actually takes place is that the intelligence gets so contaminated and affected by the false ego. And then that contaminated intelligence twists things around to such an extent, you know, just to give that gratification to the ego that, yes, we are right and the other people were wrong. You know, that's how the false ego just affects the mind and the intelligence, you know, to such an extent, you know, that the person remembers something completely different, a whole different story, you know. Yeah, so it's a very common thing that goes on, you know. Okay, do we have any other question, Puru?
Yeah. So Smita Mataji asks, how to practice dissolving false ego when surrounded in an atmosphere who lack the knowledge of the false ego?
Hang on, I didn't understand your second part. How to dissolve the false ego when you're in an environment when?
When surrounded in an atmosphere who lack the knowledge of false ego, like among non-devotees or in parent-child relationship or between spouse.
Well, I mean, see, we can't work on other people's false egos. We are meant to work on our false ego. So by attending the seminar, hopefully we get a little bit more awareness and knowledge about it. So then we can work on our false ego, you know? And I mean, yes, family relationships are the perfect place where we can practice on dissolving the false ego. I do this with my mother, for example. When I visit my mother, she's 90 years old, you know, I used to deal with her in a very inappropriate way that, you know, often we think, yeah, well, we are devotees, we know, and then we tell our mother what to do and what is right and what is wrong. But this is also completely against Vaishnava etiquette. We are not meant to instruct and correct and advise our elders only if they really ask, you know, and parents are always our superiors, even if they're not devotees. Took me quite a while to understand this, you know, and I'm sure this is one of the main reasons why we often have very strained relationships with our parents as devotees, you know, because we are the ones who don't follow this etiquette. So now I completely changed my whole way of dealing with my mother, and I consciously use, you know, that as an opportunity to let go of my false ego and let her be right, even if she's wrong. let her be right anyway, because she's my superior, she's my mother. Let her be right. No need to answer back. No need to have the last word. No need to but actually and. No need. Just let her be right because she's my superior. And usually these things are such trivial and petty things, which it's not worth it to have a whole discussion and argument over something. It's just ego matters. I mean, family life is full of this. And yeah, I mean, we can use family relationships very nicely just as an opportunity to let go of our egos. Yes. Very, very helpful, And I mean, at the moment, it may look like, oh, we are the losers when we don't defend, From an external material point of view, we may look like we are the losers. But no, in the long-term spiritual point of view, we are the winners. At the latest, at the moment of death, we have let go of our egos. We have dissolved our egos, and we can make it back home, back to God, hopefully, So in the long run, we are always the winners, Are there any more questions, Elder Babu?
Not actually a question, but a small comment from Tiffany Cooper.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. I just wanted to say thank you. I really appreciated the comment that you made when you were talking about defending. And you said so many times, we should have been chastised, but we weren't. And so it gave me another way to look at it and appreciate more how, yes, when I am in those situations where I feel like, I want to defend myself, to step back and think, well, wait a minute, there have been so many times before where I maybe have gotten away with things that I should not have. And
yes.
That's so helpful. So thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you for your comment. I mean, we can really say almost every day we are encountering such situations, where Krishna throws some provocative situation in our way. And usually, almost all the time, we do the wrong thing. We defend, we answer back. So, I mean, please try and be more aware and conscious of it, But I mean, without this introspection that we constantly reflect, what is going on here? What just happened? Why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? Why have I now some funny feeling in the heart and feel not so happy? What just took place? If we don't analyze and reflect, we almost cannot make any advancement. We're just so trapped then in these ego patterns of behaviors. We have to really reflect, and observe ourselves. But so often we are just so unconscious in our ways of dealings and saying things and so on. We're not even mindful. We are not even aware of what actually goes on in our hearts. Maybe this is now a good opportunity to share with you these 5 steps, which I already yesterday announced that we would share 5 steps, how to actually go about it and transform these ego patterns of behaviors and how to let go of the ego's demands. And as I mentioned yesterday, these steps we can actually use in any kind of internal work where we want to let go of certain patterns of behavior and establish different patterns of behaviors. They're universal steps which can always be used. So step number 1 is always we have to hear about the topic. This is what we are doing here in the seminar. We have to hear how the false ego is affecting us, how it acts upon us, you know, what we should do, what we should not do, all the different etiquettes, and. So unless we hear about it, we are not even conscious of it. We don't even understand anything, you know, and we think, oh, this is just my nature and this and that. And we don't realize it's the ego, you know. So first step is always we have to hear about the topic. Same, for example, with envy, how envy affects us, you know, towards seniors, equals juniors, and so on. It's also a good topic, you know. We first have to be mindful. This is envy when I act like that. Yes, right. That there's envy behind it. That's why I'm putting others down to establish myself in a superior position. And that's why I criticize, to make them unimportant and reduce their importance. And you know, so we have to understand what's actually going on. So hearing is always the first step. So then from hearing, we should come to the second step, which is desiring, you know, that we hopefully after this seminar, we clearly understand, well, if I want to get back to Godhead, I have to do something about this. I have to start doing some internal work. I have to let go of this ego. Otherwise, subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego will surely take us to the next gross body. No chance. It has to be transformed. It has to be spiritualized. And yeah, all the material parts of that subtle body have to be given up. So we have to desire. Same with envy. You know, once we realize how detrimental envy is and how there is no envy in the spiritual world, you know, so if we want to ever go there, we have to let go of our envy. Otherwise, we will not be allowed entrance there. So we have to have that conviction through the hearing that we realize, yes, I want to do something about this. I have to. The desire to become free of it is the second point. So then comes third point. We have to be introspective and honest. We have to look in our hearts. Why am I saying this? Why am I doing this? And introspection and honesty is such an important thing. If we don't engage in this internal work of introspection, our spiritual life will be very external, you know, just external achievements and we're just going through the motions externally. But the internal transformation may just not take place. It doesn't go automatically because we may hang on to all these patterns of behaviors and the envy and the ego, and we hope to get some satisfaction from that. So as we said yesterday, that's a 10th offense to chanting the holy name, to maintain material attachments, even after hearing so many instructions on this matter. So yeah, without this internal work, our spiritual practice is rather external. So that's a third step, introspection and honesty. We have to be honest. And exactly at this step, once again, we may very much need the help of a mentor, because that's the whole point. As long as we have material attachments and desires and ego, you know, it blocks our ears, blocks our eyes, we can't hear, we can't understand. You know, that's why we need a mentor, a well-wishing, confidential friend who is more senior than we are and who has no other interest except helping us on our spiritual journey. And we know he wants our best, you know, so then we can, you know, open up to him or even if we are in some ego battle there and we don't even notice, so then he can come and tap us on our shoulder and say, hey, just let it go, just be quiet, don't defend, it's all right, let it go, remember, devotee should not defend. So, you know, we may need somebody who pulls us out of this whole ego thing there, you know. Yeah, because by ourselves, we may just not be able to really introspect and be honest, you know, especially in a more immature stage of spiritual life, we can say. We may just not be able to see anything, you know. And all we can see is I'm right and everybody else is wrong. That's all we can see. You know, so we might just need the help of a mentor. You know. So then comes fourth step. We catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. We catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. Even though we were doing the wrong thing, but the fact that we catch ourselves doing the wrong thing, that is already a little bit of progress. Because at least we realize, here we go. I couldn't control myself. Again, I was defending, but I was answering back. I had to have the last word, you know. So at least we realize, you know, because before we didn't even realize. We were thinking we had all the right to it, and yes, it's true, and you know. So yeah, so we catch ourselves doing the wrong thing. That's already progress, you know. So now, what's the fifth step? Maybe let's be a little interactive here. Although, yeah, time is going on. What do you think? What is the fifth step? Just quickly write in your chat box there. What's the fifth step? After catching yourself doing the wrong thing. What's the fifth step? Anybody's got an idea? Elder Prabhu, you're getting some responses here. Oh, yes, here from Manju Sharma. Pray, exactly. We cry out to Krishna. Exactly. Sometimes people say, well, we just decide not to do it anymore or something. But sorry, no, it doesn't work like that. We can decide so many times not to do it anymore. You know, because the false ego, it's so deep, so subtle. We've been carrying it for so many lifetimes with us. We, from our own strength, we cannot actually free us from it. No, we don't have that power. All we can do is cry out to Krishna. Cry out to Krishna, to Lord Nrsimhadev. He is very expert to perform his the heart surgeries. Maybe unmute them again. Hare Krishna. Yeah, so Lord Nrsimhadev is very expert at performing the heart surgery, you know, and pulling out all these nasty things there in our hearts. So we have to cry out to Lord Nrsimhadev, please free me from this ego, you know, from this desire to be right and to know better and to be superior. And when will the day come when I can finally let go of these patterns of behaviors, you know? Yeah, really, that's our only hope. Krishna's our only hope. Because really false ego, it is like a little demon there, you know. Even Hiranyakashipu we can see as a personification of false ego, actually, you know. And yes, so we have to, you know, beg Krishna to free us from these demoniac tendencies, you know. So now if we do these last three steps of being introspective and honest, catching ourselves doing the wrong thing, lamenting, crying out to Krishna, introspection and honesty, catching ourselves doing the wrong thing, lamenting, crying out for Krishna. If we do these three things again and again and again, then sooner or later, there is a sixth step also. We come to the sixth step, where we catch ourselves doing the right thing. Yes, it really works. You know, if we do this internal work, then sooner or later, we will meet some situation in our life and we realize, wow, a few weeks earlier, I would have reacted differently. I would have gone for it. I would have taken the bait and defend and do and answer back. But now, amazingly, I could just let it go by without responding. Yes. And then we realize, okay, Krishna is helping, it is actually working. We can gradually transform our patterns of behaviors, yes, yes. So, and we can say if a devotee agrees to do this internal work of being introspective and honest, catching ourselves doing the wrong thing, lamenting and crying out to Krishna, if we agree to do this internal work, then we actually make progress. That's when we actually make some advancement, because we agree to do this internal work. We often think the externals are an indication for advancement. Oh, yes, first initiation, second initiation. Now I'm Brahmin. Now I'm, this title, that title, and but that's all the external stuff, But what really counts is to let go of the false ego. And again, family life is the perfect opportunity for this. That's why family life in Krishna consciousness, family life as an ashram, is highly purifying. My God, highly purifying. Yes. Every day we have these opportunities, to let go of the false ego. Yes. Let me maybe mention a few more words about tolerance, because obviously tolerance is so much connected with false ego. What stops us from tolerating something is nothing else but the false ego. The ego demands, the ego rebels, the ego protests, So tolerance is just such an important quality to develop. We can say that tolerance is directly the indication how advanced a person is. It's tolerance. No, let's put it that way. A devotee's spiritual strength can be measured in how tolerant a person can be. It's directly an indication of spiritual strength and spiritual advancement, because tolerating means the false ego is subdued, at least a little bit. Otherwise, it's impossible to tolerate. We can only tolerate if we can let go of the false ego, So, and that is a sign of advancement, as we said, at the moment of death, that's what counts, whether actually the subtle body is transformed, Of course, bhakti also has to be there. But the point is, without actually being established in a loving relationship with Krishna, we actually cannot even tolerate. Yes. That's also an interesting point, because, there's so many munis and yogis, and they usually are not so good in tolerating, They're getting all angry and cursing others and so on, So actually, and there is also a verse which expresses that. Yes, I think you have the number there also on your sheet. Yes, further down, where I'm saying a devotee's spiritual strength can be measured in how tolerant he can be. Only a devotee can be truly tolerant, fixed in his relationship with Krishna. There's 11:22:61. It says there, O soul of the universe, the conditioning of one's personality and material life is very strong, and therefore it is very difficult even for learned men to tolerate the offenses committed against them by ignorant people. Only your devotees who are fixed in your loving service and who have achieved peace by residing at your lotus feet are able to tolerate such offenses. Yes. So let us understand why is the ability to tolerate directly connected with a loving relationship with Krishna. because we take shelter there, we take refuge there. We can say to ourselves, thank God, this has nothing to do with my relationship with Krishna, right? Yesterday we were discussing the nonsensical stage performance, how Prabhupada calls life in the material world a nonsensical stage performance. So let's imagine somebody's really, challenging you or offending you, insulting you. So, and then if that our relationship with Krishna is established a little bit at least, then we can say, thank God, this actually has nothing to do with my relationship with Krishna. Nobody can touch that. Nothing can destroy that. And that is factual reality, my loving relationship with Krishna. That's eternal reality. Whereas everything else is just part of the crazy circus here of the material world, So that's why actually only a devotee can truly tolerate, because we can kind of escape into that eternal reality of my relationship with Krishna, Yes. But in any case, tolerance, I have collected a few more nice quotes about tolerance. 1:18:48. There it is said in the verse, the devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. Wow. Yes. They tolerate. I mean, Haridas Thakur, Prahlad Maharaj, they're the famous examples of tolerance. Not defending. Yes. And what else do I have here in my little book? There was one more. Here. 11:19:36-39. Also a nice statement. Tolerance means to patiently endure unhappiness, such as that provoked by insults or negligence of others. One must also sometimes accept material inconvenience to carry out the injunctions of scriptures, and that unhappiness must also be patiently endured. So yes, what is most provoking for the false ego is when we are insulted or neglected. This is very, very hard for the ego to tolerate, if somebody insults us or simply completely neglects and ignores us and so on, very, it's painful for the ego, we can almost feel some physical pain there in the heart, So that is the ego, the ego is all in pain. Oh, yes. So, I mean, there's quite a few nice examples in the Shastra, apart from Prahlad Maharaj or Haridas Thakur, even like, great personalities accepted curses without defending. Chitraketu, when Parvati cursed him to take birth in a demon's body, he could have easily defended, counteracted, but no, he humbly accepted, okay, Mother Parvati, if you think this is what I deserve, and he gave his whole speech there for devotee, doesn't matter hellish situation or heavenly situation, demigod body or demon's body, doesn't matter, So very nice example. Or even Parikshit Maharaj, he could have also counteracted the curse, he could have defended, but he didn't, he simply tolerated, accepted without defending, Yeah, so there's many nice examples in the Shastra, which illustrate how a Vaishnava acts, that he or she doesn't defend, and we learn to tolerate, you know. And I mean, yes, it's interesting to understand tolerance from a material point of view is seen as weakness, right? Yes, completely. You know, often we hear this, what? How can you tolerate this? Forget it. I'm not tolerating this nonsense. I'm walking out. I get divorced. I don't tolerate this. What should I tolerate? And you know. So from a material point of view, tolerance means weakness. And defending, this is glorious. You know, you step in for yourself there and you defend and you know, this is the wanted thing. And tolerating means weakness. You're a loser, you know. So what is success in material life is a loss. It's unwanted in spiritual life and vice versa. What is the highest in spiritual life is considered to be a loser and weakness in material life. You know, that's how the two are like day and night. You know. Yes, what else do we have? Yes, we can quickly maybe touch upon the story of King Rahugana, you know, also a nice story, who did not defend, you know. King Rahugana, he was carried on the palanquin there, you know, and then he chastised Jada Bharat for walking so funny because he was avoiding to step on the ants, but he gave him a pretty jolty ride there. So, and then he chastised Jada Bharat, but then Jada Bharat, you know, gave the whole eloquent speech there saying, yes, today you're the king, tomorrow, and I am the servant, but tomorrow maybe the other way around. So King Rahugana very easily, he could have defended, he could have said, oh, what nonsense are you talking? Don't you know I'm the king? I'm going to get you locked up or killed or whatever, you know, because externally he was in a superior position. He was the king after all. So, but he didn't defend. He immediately realized, oh, my palanquin carrier, he is actually a self-realized soul. He jumped off the palanquin and he paid obeisances, you know. But if he had reacted from an ego platform, how dare you talk to me like this, you know, so then there would have been a whole conflict. But because he took the humble position, you know, the whole incident was uplifting to everyone involved, to Jada Bharat, to himself, to us who hear the story, you know. So a very nice example, you know. But then we have other examples in the Bhagavatam, Daksha, Indra, you know, they like to defend. So then there's conflict, you know. Then we also have the story of Sakshi Gopal, who, you know, whole big story. I mean, we don't have the time to tell the whole story, but let's quickly remember, you know, the old Brahmana had given the young Brahmana the daughter in marriage, had promised him the daughter in marriage. And then later the other relatives objected, you know. So, and then the young Brahmana, it looked like he was defending. It looked like it, you know, because he went to the deity Sakshi Gopal, where he had, the old Brahmana had given the promise and so on. And he said to him, oh, you know, he is not giving me the daughter in marriage and so on. So, but the crucial point in that story is that the young Brahmana, his motive was not to defend. His motive was not to be right, but actually he wanted to save and protect the old Brahmana from this offense of breaking his promise, which he had given in front of Sakshi Gopal, right? Externally, it may look like, oh, just see, he defended. Oh, he promised me the daughter, now he's not giving, and I will tell him. But no, that was not his mood. He was heartbroken you know, that the promise of this old Brahmana would be broken, and what kind of example that would be. And that was his motive, you know, to do something about the situation. And that's why the deity agreed to walk, you know, to the place there, you know, where the deity was saying, oh, how can I walk? And then the Brahmana said, well, if you can talk, then you can walk. And, and so then the deity agreed to walk behind him, you know, under the condition he wouldn't turn around and look at him and so on. So, I mean, obviously, the Sakshigopa would not have agreed to walk behind him if that Brahmana had simply that motive of defending himself and being right and getting the daughter in marriage. No, he agreed because he had a different motive. He had a higher motive. He was not worried about himself, you know. Yeah, so there's also a nice little detail there to understand. But let us also understand that cultivation of tolerance is really only possible if we have faith in Krishna. Without faith in Krishna, very, very difficult to tolerate, you know, unless we can really see Krishna in the picture there and understand, well, there must be some reason why Krishna is putting me in this situation. What is my lesson here, which I'm meant to learn, you know? Without connecting, being able to connect our situation with Krishna behind it, we cannot tolerate, you know. So we need faith in Krishna and humility. These are the two tools to cultivate true tolerance. Faith in Krishna and humility. If we are not humble, if a proud person will never be able to tolerate, you know, oh, I deserve better treatment than this, and so a proud person cannot tolerate. And if we don't have faith in Krishna, we can also not tolerate because we cannot see how Krishna is trying to teach us something, you know. So these are the two tools, you know, humility and faith in Krishna that we can learn to tolerate. And one more quick little thing before I open for question. Sometimes people say, well, but how much can I tolerate, you know? And when I tolerate, oh, I have all this negativity building up in me, cooking up, and then sooner or later I'm exploding, and oh, I get sick, and so on, you know? So let us understand there is a difference between suppressing and tolerating. When we simply suppress, you know, it's like we put the cork on the bottle there, you know, we hold in the feelings, but inside it's all still boiling and the ego battle inside is still going on. Oh, it's unfair, I was right, and actually I shouldn't have been treated like this, and you know, that is not tolerance. That is simply suppressing. But we continue the ego battle inside. And that's what, you know, makes the cork explode then there, you know, sooner or later, because the whole ego battle still continues and it's building up and until we explode. That's not what we talk about here. You know, that is simply suppressing. It's not tolerating. Let's be clear in this. So tolerating means we let go of this internal ego battle. You know, we let it go by, we drop it. We understand, okay, Krishna puts me in this situation here. Let me just use it as an opportunity to let it go by. And also Vaishnav mood is, actually, I'm deserving so much more than this, but Krishna is so kind, he only gives me one little drop of what I really deserve. You know? So if we have that attitude, you know, if we can see things in that mood, then things will not, boil up there and explode, but then that helps us to actually drop things and let it go, and let go of this ego battle. So we have to clearly understand what it actually means to tolerate. As we said, we need faith in Krishna, that there is some reason why Krishna puts us in this situation. After all, no blade of grass is moving without Krishna being in control. So there must be something, and all right, maybe in my previous life, or not previous life, but even this life, I have, mistreated people. So now I'm getting it back. And so that's what it means to be tolerant, to cultivate tolerance, that we actually internally, we give up this ego battle and we let go of it, Yes. Okay, let us see if we have some questions, since it is a pretty practical thing. Is there something, Elder Prabhu?
I see that, I will unmute Mataji. She didn't wrote anything.
Who are you unmuting?
Sonia Repachevsky, please.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, sorry, Tutsi Priya. Yeah, I have one thing. In the 5 steps, you mentioned that the 5th step is to pray, to cry out to Krishna and lament. Yeah. And I was just wondering, because for me this looks a little bit inactive, if there is some active part too. What appeared to my consciousness was that Krishna, he recommends to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita that in order to control the mind, detachment and proper endeavor is necessary, and also that the devotional service, we can actually come out of the gunas, so to say, Daiviyesha Gunamayi. So could these 2 things be also possible to be applied in this 5th step a little actively?
I mean, see, of course, these 5 steps only work if we also practice the process of Krishna consciousness. It's not either the 5 steps or devotional service or something, So, of course, the ultimate thing is the hearing, the chanting, the serving, and. But nevertheless, very easily, unless we really do this internal work, we still maintain the patterns of behaviors. We are just so trapped in them. That's the whole problem, So there's the general process of devotional service, but as I was saying, unless we, do something about it, that we don't maintain this attachment of feeding the ego and defending the ego and protecting the ego, then if we defend and answer back, we commit the 10th offense, basically, of maintaining material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. So that's the point. It's a subtle attachment of wanting to be right, and so on. So that's why Krishna gives us the Vaishnava etiquette and culture. And that's a very strong point of Vaishnava etiquette, that a Vaishnava should not defend himself. We don't know these things so much here in the Western world. We don't hear so much about it. But I mean, in other places where we are still a little closer to Krishna's culture, this is known. This is considered to be very inappropriate, yes. Yes. So, and I mean, crying out to Krishna, my God, this is not inactive. You said this is passive or something. This is the essence of devotional life. We have to come to this point where we cry out to Krishna. That's why Gaur Govinda Maharaj was saying it. An ISKCON temple is a crying school where we learn how to cry out to Krishna. You know, yeah, this is really the essence. Even if you open up the Vaishnav songbook, almost all our Vaishnav bhajans, they're in this mood of crying out to Krishna. You know, Kabe Habe Bolo, when oh when will the day be mine, you know, or Gurudev Kripa Bindu Diya. Gurudev, give to the servant just one drop of mercy. And then the last line, if you're not merciful unto me, I can only weep and I will not be able to maintain my life any longer. My God, you know, how much more can one cry out to Krishna, you know? Prabhupada said we should chant like a child, helplessly crying out for his mother. I mean, this crying out is a really important part of our devotional practice, actually, you know. So I wouldn't call that passive, you know. No, it's active.
Thank you.
Okay. What else?
Question from Sadhu. We'll try to show him. Or
From Sadhu. Please, Sadhu, show your picture here. We only see a black hole with a name.
Hare Krishna, how can we turn suppressing into tolerance?
Well, as I said, first step is always hearing about it. We have to hear about these topics. We have to understand that simply suppressing is not tolerating, you know. And yeah, we have to cultivate faith in Krishna. And yeah, so many things. Yeah, simply, yeah, we need a mentor who can help us in this whole process, you know. Mentor is very important. So many things can be really solved, and you know, we can make so much more smoothly advancement if we have the guidance, you know. We have the guidance. Yes. Well, I mean, I can't come up with some quick fix-it solution here, you know. It's a whole process, you know, whole process of cultivation, inner cultivation. Anything else?
Yes. From Yadavendra Prabhu. We'll try to show him also. Don't have a video. How to remain tolerant when we are in great pain and in very disturbing situation?
Yeah, well, I like to discuss that topic in our discussions about death, you know, how pain is actually experienced on the platform of the mind. When the mind is focused strongly in some higher absorption, we can actually overcome the level of pain. I often, in this regard, I share my funny little story. When I was a teenager, I was playing handball and I was the goalkeeper. And I once broke my finger. Really, it was standing off to the side. But because I was so focused in the match, I continued playing with this, you know, broken finger for half an hour. And I did not feel any pain. Nothing. You know, and only when the match was over and I took off my gloves and I saw my finger, then the pain hit, you know. So, yeah, I mean, that's what we are tested at the moment of death, how much we are really focusing on Krishna, how important this relationship with Krishna is for us. And then we can overcome the level of pain, actually. You know. Yes. I mean, more discussion about that you will find in the Vanapasta Ashram seminar. Last 2 sessions are all about death, what happens there, and so on, you know, because very often devotees say, oh, I'm not so afraid of death, but I'm afraid of the pain that comes along with death. So I'm going into all details there, you know, I don't want to go too much off the topic now, you know. But yeah, it's simply a question of absorbing the mind, you know, that's why Krishna always says, fix the mind on me, fix the mind on me, you know, main and foremost rule of Krishna consciousness, to always remember Krishna, never forget him. And so, you know, then we can overcome the level of pain. You know? If I can fix my mind on Krishna as much as I could fix my mind on winning the handball match, you know, then I'll be lucky. Okay, we have something else.
Yes, Satya Mataji wanted to ask something.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. I wanted to ask how to apply this, to be completely tolerant, how to apply it again in relationship with children when we try to bring them up and try to direct them in certain ways. It's probably different topic, isn't it? Different.
No, I mean,
or what do you say?
As I mentioned, you know, family relationships is really a very good place for cultivating tolerance. Whether this is towards the husband or towards the children, it's the same principle, really, you know?
Okay.
Yes. So again, first step is hearing about it and just trying our best to subdue the ego. And, you know, when we act the wrong way, when we're too impatient, crying out to Krishna, you know, same steps, really, you know, whether that is with the husband or the children, no difference, you know. Ultimately, we have to cry out to Krishna, you know, to beg him to help us to subdue the false ego, you know. Yes. I do want to... Huh?
Yeah, you know this? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I do want to finish this session just with a couple of little general points that, you know, we can say Krishna has also given us a practical system in our daily life, how to subdue the false ego. And there is a difference according to what kind of body we are in. So we can say for all those spirit souls who are in a female vehicle, as I like to call it, actually, you know, one practical way how to practice giving up the false ego is that we put ourselves below men around us. Not only husband, but any man. Because yesterday we were sharing how men have a stronger false ego built in because they are meant to play the role of taking charge. So, and we can practice on the men around us to give up our egos by taking the humble position towards men, and especially towards the husband. I mean, it's a different seminar altogether. I do discuss this more in detail in this book, Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. You know, and Prabhupada says it in the Bhagavatam in so many places. How if we women want to be happy, if we want to have harmonious relationships with men around us, we have to learn to take the humble position, you know. And yeah, married life is a great opportunity, again, for us ladies, simply to cultivate this mood of letting go of the false ego. You know, this is already almost one reason why or we women should go through the school of married life, you know, and we can say, I mean, I hope nobody minds me saying this, but I have observed if women have never been married, they usually have a pretty prominent false ego. Simply because we don't have that daily opportunity to practice on the husband, you know, to let him be right, even maybe he's not right. Same like with my mother. I let her be right, even if she's wrong, you know. So similarly, we can also practice on the husband. Let him be right. Sooner or later, he will realize that he's not right, you know, which of course doesn't mean we have to go along with anything or something, you know. We don't really have the time now to go into details on this topic. But I mean, I can share one little story again from my own life. I hope you don't mind. That even as a preacher, if you want to have harmonious relationships with men around you, you know, you can't escape it. You can't escape it. I was in that situation, you know, it was in Ukraine. There was one Prabhupada disciple who also preaches there regularly. And this is years ago. I was just starting to put my courses together about culture and so on, you know. So this devotee, he came up to me and in a very instructive way, he told me, "Oh, Mataji, I heard you giving these talks to the ladies." And then he said, actually, what you should do is you should teach them how to weave their own cloth. This is what you should teach them, how to weave their own cloth. So, maybe you can imagine how what went on in my heart or mind or ego, you know. I thought, what a stupid idea, you know. Which woman would want to learn how to weave their own cloth? What for? This is just unpractical. This is what I was thinking, you know. So, and my ego immediately pushed me to respond, you know. And I immediately said, "Oh, Prabhu, I don't think this is really relevant today, and let them first understand the general principles and of their nature and, you know." So I responded like that. So of course, as you can imagine, he was not very happy, you know. So he answered back. So we almost started arguing, you know. So then afterwards, I was thinking to myself, my God, why did I answer like that? I could have just said to him, "Oh, thank you very much, Prabhu, for, you know, thinking about my humble preaching efforts. Thank you. I will think about it. Not a bad idea. I will take it into consideration." You know? So I could have answered like that, you know. And then he would have felt happy. "Oh, Devaki Mataji liked my idea. Great," you know. So then he would have been very happy. But I completely, you know, got sucked into the ego reaction, you know, of trying to tell him that I know better and my idea is better, and that his idea is not good, you know. So, yeah, I mean, we didn't start arguing. We know each other, you know, but yeah, I didn't feel so good after this conversation, you know. So then I realized, you know, again, ego patterns of behaviors, immediately defending and shooting back and telling him that I know better, you know. So then afterwards, I just couldn't help but smiling to myself and thinking, just say, you know, it doesn't matter in what situation you are. If we women want to have harmonious relationships with the men around us, we have to learn to deal with their egos and make their ego our best friend and not our enemy, you know. Yes. So that's kind of the path for the women, you know, that we can see the men around us in such a way that we can practice on them, how to give up our false egos, you know, and subdue the egos a bit and so on, you know. So, and then for all those souls in the male vehicles, what is their way of subduing their egos? Sometimes we women think we have to smash their egos, but that doesn't work so well. But no, Krishna has a different process. So for the men, it's cooperating with other men. That's where they have to, you know, subdue their egos. It's very clear and logical, you know, because as we said, male body comes along with a stronger ego. So if you have a bunch of men there, everybody has a strong ego, everybody wants to take charge. So obviously you're going to have some clashes. So in cooperation with other men, that's where, you know, the male ego gets battered and beaten type thing, you know. And we see it all the time, you know, in ISKCON, outside ISKCON. There's so many power games and ego battles going on amongst men, you know. We can almost say most of our conflicts within ISKCON come about, you know, through the ego battles between the men, especially when they have similar power of influence, you know, when they have similar influence. There's often so much, you know, tension there and, you know, yes. So for the men, they subdue their egos by working together with other men. And for us women, the process is to, you know, take the humble position towards the men, you know. And I dare say we probably have the easier path, you know. I dare say for us women, it's easier to take the humble position towards the men, you know. But amongst the men, oh, I mean, I wouldn't want to be in their position. I really, yeah, I think their, you know, deal is more difficult, you know, because it's like that. If you want to take charge, so easily the ego wants to be part of it. To actually take charge without ego motivation, to take charge as humble servant, that's a challenge, that's difficult, you know. Yes, I dare say that's more difficult than taking the humble position towards the man, you know. Yes. Anyway, so I just wanted to share that a little bit at the end. And I mean, even in the animal kingdom, we can see that, you know, the monkeys in Vrindavan, dogs in Vrindavan, it's mainly the male monkeys, male dogs who fight over territory and, you know. So even there we see the same principle going on, you know. Okay. So this is basically the main thing which I wanted to present today. So let me have a look if there is still any more questions, comments, or anything.
Yes, we have some.
Okay.
From Shvetadvipa.
Why don't you devotees all show yourself a little bit here? At least those who ask the questions. Let me see your smiling face.
So the question is, Mataji, how can I deal with regret from past activities where I have acted out of pride and false ego? Sometimes my past actions come to my mind and I feel lost.
What was the first sentence? How can I
deal with regret from past activities?
Well, I mean, how do we deal with regret? We simply regret. We cry out to Krishna, and if that person is still around who we offended or we dealt inappropriately, you know, the Vaishnava etiquette is that we are meant to apologize. You know, we ask for forgiveness. So if that person is still available, we should ask for forgiveness. That's the only way, ultimately, how to become free of offenses towards other devotees, you know. And I mean, also regretting doesn't mean that we drown ourselves in guilt feelings or something, you know? We can also say there's two kinds of lamentation. There is material kind of lamentation and there's spiritual lamentation. So what's the difference? Material lamentation is disconnected from Krishna. There we still keep ourselves in the center and we just go around in circles. Oh, I'm so bad. I'm so useless. Oh, I'll never make it. Oh, you know, it's kind of a self-indulgence. And it's also some kind of sense gratification, actually, feeling pity for ourselves, you know. And that leads to tamaguna. We drown ourselves in you know, no hope and become suicidal or whatever, you know. So that's not what we talk about. But spiritual lamentation is we lament and we cry out to Krishna. We put Krishna in the center, you know, and we use that whole regret and lamentation to take more tightly shelter of Krishna's lotus feet and the Vaishnava's lotus feet and take the process of Krishna consciousness more seriously. So that is an uplifting lamentation, you know, because it is in connection with Krishna. Whereas the mundane lamentation is disconnected from Krishna. Krishna is not even in the picture. We are in the center and we just go in circles around ourselves and feel pity for ourselves. So that kind of lamentation is not wanted, you know.
Yes. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay, where are you from, Prabhu?
I'm from Houston.
From
Houston Temple. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you to have you there. Who else?
Mohana Sinirada Mataji.
Okay. From Austria, we know her.
Is this principle of not defending ourselves applicable also in outside world, not only among devotees?
Well, I shared my whole story with the taxation department, you know, so as we were saying, you know, we, even in the outside world, we have to be very careful. Is it worth it defending? You know, very careful. And yes, I mean, even in the story with my taxation department there, externally, I'm looking like the loser. Oh, I paid the money, you know, I didn't stand up for myself and defend it, you know, so externally I might look like the loser. But internally, long term on the spiritual platform, no, I'm not the loser. I'm a winner because I just take it as an opportunity to let go of this whole ego thing. And I don't want to disturb my mind, you know, and ruin my whole bhajan here just for some money or what, you know. So we have to consider very carefully. I don't want to go so far and say one should never defend, you know, because there may be some situations where it is a question of survival or what, you know, so I don't want to go so far to say we should never defend, but at least we should carefully consider and take guidance, you know, from people who are aloof and detached, who can really see, and also who are a little mature and you know, and understand the whole topic of this defense, you know. Because I mean, even Haridas Thakur, you know, you can also say, well, this was an external thing there. He was beaten up by the Muslims, you know, and he didn't defend, you know, he didn't defend. So, yeah, I mean, we have to be very careful when we make decisions whether to defend or not, you know.
I have the feeling that if I don't defend, then I come closer to Krishna because I surrender to him more, like naturally.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. Yes. we take shelter in Krishna, you know, and we realize at the moment of death, who cares? You know, it's not important anymore. Exactly. So that's why we benefit, you know, we benefit. I mean, sometimes people get so worked up about some little things and they get all caught up and, oh my God, you know, and counteracting and fighting and they, you know, and it, yeah, it just contaminates the whole consciousness. But this ego battles, you know, it's very contaminating actually. We feel all ugly and horrible and agitated, and it feeds all, you know, anger and so on, you know. So yeah, we have to be very careful whether it's all worthwhile, you know. Anything else?
Yeah, Chaitanya Baba Prabhu wanted to ask something.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Where are you from, Prabhu?
Mataji, I'm from Dallas.
From Dallas. Okay.
Dallas. Mataji, so I think this is kind of related to the previous question. So I've been thinking a little bit about the term righteous anger, and you know, if such a thing exists, and like we do see some examples in the Shastra, you know, especially for Kshatriyas, but for us, if it exists, and if it does, then can we have it without ego playing a role? For example, you know, some cases where somebody may be taking advantage of us, which is related to the previous question, or somebody else maybe, you know, maybe it's a responsibility towards something wrong which may be happening. So I was just wondering if it is possible to have righteous anger without false ego playing a role.
I mean, spontaneously, I would say righteous anger, there would be a place for this when it comes to defending ISKCON or Prabhupada, you know? And I mean, Kshatriyas also, that they have a higher goal. They're not defending their own egos there or something, but they're defending the country, the nation, and whatever, you know, and some higher principles or whatever, you know. So, but even there, yeah, we also have to be careful that it is not with ego, you know. Even in such a situation, let's say ISKCON is getting attacked and we are defending. But unless it is really purely, you know, our desire to defend is pure, then very easily the ego also comes in, you know, and then even our defense propensity may be contaminated from our false ego. And then we also may not get the right result, you know. But like the story with Shakshi Gopal, you know. So he was not acting out of defending his own ego, wanting to be right and getting the daughter in marriage there. But no, you know, he had a different motive. So then Krishna came and supported him, you know. So it's a nice understanding that if our motive is pure and we are purely defending ISKCON or Krishna or Prabhupada or whoever it may be, then Krishna will also help, you know. And I mean, Prabhupada also demonstrated that in his court cases there with Mr. Nair in Mumbai and all these stories, you know. I mean, Prabhupada, he was furious, you know. So, but it was pure. It was no ego. Prabhupada didn't have a false ego. You know, his anger was completely pure, you know, because he was fighting on behalf of Krishna, you know. Yes, on behalf of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. So, and then Krishna, you know, supported, you know. Yeah, so we have to be careful. I mean, even in preaching, in book distribution, so easily we can be affected by the false ego, you know, very often. And and devotees, when they're in the street distributing books, and they're maybe not so mature yet in their spiritual life, and they easily get caught up in ego battles and can't take a no for an answer, you know. And often the non-devotee also has his ego battle. He wants to say no and he wants to stick to the no. So then very easily you get caught up in ego battles, you know. And I mean, I once heard this funny story from Russia, where a book distributor was distributing books at a petrol station, and he was hitting up all the truck drivers. And once he hit up a truck driver, showed him the book, and he said, "No, sorry, I'm not interested." He started his truck, and the book distributor jumped on the back of the truck. He couldn't take a no for an answer, you know. He jumped on the back of the truck. So the truck started driving 50 kilometers, you know, with a book distributor on the back. So, and then finally he knocked on the cabin of the truck, you know, and said, "Oh, please, you know, stop, let me get off," you know. So, you know, just because of the stupid ego battle there, he lost half the day. He had to hitchhike back to the service station where his car was parked and so on, you know. So, yeah, I mean, or in preaching also, you know, when we preach and explain people the philosophy, then very easily we get caught up in ego battles there, and we want to be right, and we want to show that we know better and this and that, you know. And that kind of preaching is actually not uplifting, you know. It's not uplifting. It's contaminating to ourselves, even though we were talking about Krishna and Prabhupada, but still, because it came with this ego motivation of proving that we are right and we know better, you know, and we feel all bad afterwards, and the other person also walks off with a bad impression and a bad feeling in the heart. So this is, you know, how the ego affects one, you know. So even if we are out there, you know, preaching and so on, if we're affected by ego, the whole thing gets contaminated, you know. Yes.
So Mataji, when it comes to this kind of a analysis for personal, so for defending our institution, I understood, but for personal things like some financial exploitation, just I guess related to your example also. So again, people ask this question, you know, is it righteous anger if it's against exploitation of the self, financially or otherwise? So I guess the answer is it's complicated, right? Like we have to see the situation if it's worth it.
Yeah, because I mean, we also have to understand what is the self. The self is the soul, you know? And for the soul, it has no, you know, it doesn't matter for the soul whether we pay, you know, the tax or not or whatever, you know. So it actually is not connected to the real self of the soul, you know. So it is connected with our temporary situation. And because we identify with that temporary situation so deeply, that comes through the false ego, that we think, yes, I'm a German woman and I'm not meant to pay this tax. And so, you know, it is not righteous anger or something. No. I mean, that's how I understand it, or that's how I would define righteous anger. That it is actually pure, you know, for the sake of defending Krishna, you know, without ego motivation, that we don't want to be right and be the winner and all this, you know, and get our way and all this. This is not righteous anger according to my definition, you know. Yes. Okay. Anything else, Prabhu?
Yes, Janeshwara Prabhu wanted to say.
Okay. First of all, let me thank you, Janeshwara Prabhu, for joining us here. Nice to see you.
Very much.
He is from Sweden, from Almvik.
Yes. I just wanted to give some appreciation. I think it was very useful, your talk here about the false ego. And I was thinking in my own chanting of japa, that many times I start off by dialogue in the mind, depending myself. But then it's so important that we just let go of this, and the only thing at that point, at least, is the chanting of the holy names. So
Yes.
that is very helpful. There is training actually to give up this defending.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I quickly mentioned this yesterday, only briefly, that very often when we chant japa and the mind wanders, that it's actually the root causes the false ego, that the false ego pushes the mind, and then the ego and the mind take us for a whole journey. And we have whenever we have all these conversations going on in our minds, back and forwards and always in circles, and we can't let go of it and drop it, there's always a clear sign of the ego just taking us for a ride. And we usually don't even realize, we somehow think, yes, I'm just distracted or something, and we don't pinpoint it so much that we realize, yes, it's the ego, just defending and having the whole conversation and argument in our mind there and so on. Yes, very true.
Thank you very much, Mataji.
Prabhu, let me hear quickly, how are things going in Alnwick? I haven't been there for so many years.
We just have a Prabhupada marathon. We hadn't had for many years, and I had a little party myself. One bhakta, one devotee from Holland. We were out 5 or 6 days a week, and we have so many things going on nicely here. We have some young people, the young 16 years old, 18 years old. They started to go out distributing books, and they go for Harinam, and they are on the Gora Arctic every night since over 1 year.
Okay.
That is fantastic.
Wonderful.
And they are very musical, and they have taste for chanting. So
how many boys do you have in the ashram there in the temple?
The boys are living with their parents, but we have still a few older devotees in the ashram.
Oh, yeah.
Pujaris.
Okay. Good. Well, then give my greetings to everybody, to Parameshwari Mataji and whoever remembers me there.
Yes. I will tell them greetings from you.
And of course to your wife and Lokanath and
yes,
Kunda Prabhu and
Krishna Swami.
Yes. Okay. Yes. No, sometimes I'm remembering you there. I'm here now in Simhachalam, I got stuck in Germany and I took shelter here in Simhachalam, and yes, and I sometimes told them here about what's happening a bit in Alnwick and so on. But I mean, I haven't been to Alnwick for so long, so I'm probably not even up to date anymore what's going on there. But anyway, it's very nice to see you.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Prabhu?
Yeah. From Venue Devidasi, formerly Franca Mataji. Hare Krishna, if men most of the time work alone, then there is less chance to subdue the false ego. How to deal with it?
If men work alone, she's saying.
Most of the time.
Well, I mean, if they work at alone, this you mean that they work, so all right, that's one thing. But the association of devotees is so important. That's why I'm again and again saying, to really make progress, we have to be part of a community, because also our philosophy is to serve the devotees. So if we are living far away from devotees and we are alone, so how can we serve the devotees? It's not possible, really. All right, we can maybe do something over internet or something. But we are missing out that whole purifying process of having to work together. I mean, I'm also experiencing this here in Simhachalam. It's a very lively community. There's quite, we are usually around 30 people at Mongalari or something. And if you live together on one property and you have to work together and cooperate and you have to, you know, subdue your egos and you have to adjust and so on, there's so much purification in it. My God, you know, yes. But if we, you know, live far away and we just come once or twice a week or once a month or something for 3 hours for the Sunday program or something, we are not getting the same purification as if we have to, you know, serve together and cooperate. So yeah, we have to understand that, and we have to put our, if we want to make some progress, we have to put ourselves in the fire of service in cooperation with other devotees. So important, so purifying. Yeah. I mean, even as a preacher, I feel it's almost easy to just move from place to place, you know, every weekend being somewhere else. Of course, it has also its challenges, but it's more challenging to really become part of a community and become part of people's lives. This is, yeah, has a whole different side of purification there than just traveling and moving on, you know. And then after a week, okay, see you later and move to the next place. You know, of course, it's also wonderful and nice and has its challenges, but to actually become more part of people's lives has very different challenges, which are highly purifying, you know. Yes. Even as a preacher, same thing, you know. So it's on all levels like that, you know. Anything else?
Yes, from Mataji Susmita. I hope that I pronounce it correctly.
Yes. Where's
Oh.
she from? Susmita Mataji. And put on your video. Let us see you.
She has poor internet connection. So.
Oh, okay.
I asked him to unmute. Maybe she will talk, but maybe
okay.
she connect video.
Just read out what she's asking.
What's the role of self-respect and self-esteem of a woman in front of men while practicing dissolving false ego? More appropriately, where to draw the line so that I don't end up losing confidence and feel low and useless about myself?
Okay. Well, this is also a pretty involved topic, actually, which I am discussing more deeply in this book, you know, The False Ego, Our Constant Companion and Troublemaker, just in case there's somebody here who hasn't seen this yet, who was not here yesterday. So in the book, I can explain so many more things. But let me just say one thing. There's two kinds of confidence in self-esteem. There's material confidence and self-esteem. There's spiritual confidence and self-esteem. So material confidence and self-esteem is based on the false ego. I can do it. I am great. No problem. And. So that's the material one. But the spiritual confidence is that we understand I'm actually insignificant and tiny and helpless. And I have to take shelter in Krishna. And that gives us confidence. And Prabhupada gives this example of a child crossing a big, busy road, you know. So if the child is by himself and says, yes, I'm a big boy, I can cross this road, and just starts running, most likely he will get run over. But if the child is with his father and puts his hand in the father's hand, and he takes that confidence from being with his father, because I'm with my father, I'm confident. So then he can cross the road by the help of his father. So, you know, that's the analogy to help us understand that our confidence should not be based on false ego, but it should be based on our ability to take shelter in Krishna and knowing that Krishna is there and ultimately Krishna protects. Even though we may be unsuccessful, but still Krishna will accept the endeavor and recognize that the success or not success, that's just the external thing, you know. So that understanding that Krishna is there, Krishna appreciates the endeavor, even if externally the success is not there, but nevertheless, Krishna sees how much we try to please him, you know, so that gives us the confidence which we are meant to develop, you know. But also in this regard, I can maybe mention that if a woman, for example, has had very bad experiences, maybe has been tortured or abused or really mistreated, you know, then when a person has such kind of experiences, it's often very difficult for them to accept this idea of submitting to man, because then immediately all these pictures of abuse and torture comes up or something. So then obviously this may require some professional treatment, you know, and we can say if the false ego is, you know, in past experiences, if it has been battered around and smashed so much, then maybe before we can dissolve it, we actually have to put it back in place first. You understand what I'm saying? You know, that we may need some professional help, some treatment to actually heal the false ego first before we can dissolve it. Right? Yes. But I mean, this, I dare say, I mean, I hope this is a more exceptional situation, you know? I hope, you know? But yeah, that's what we can say, you know? If a person has really been so hurt and tortured and abused or misused or something, then the person may need some professional help just to put the ego back in place, to fix it. And only then we can really dissolve, you know. When the ego is smashed in bits and pieces, then it may be difficult to, you know, subordinate ourselves and you know, because all kinds of traumas are there in our minds and so on, you know. Right? So yeah, if a person comes from an abused background, then we may need some professional help. Yes, because without that, we cannot go back to Godhead. You know, we have to clearly understand, with all kinds of luggage which we are carrying with us from all kinds of horrible experiences, this has to be dealt with. We have to dissolve this. You know, we cannot be allowed entrance into the spiritual world with such luggage, you know. Yes. Yes, so it has to be addressed. It has to be treated, you know. Yes. Okay, anything else?
Susmita Mataji wanted to thank you very much for previous advice. Thank you very much for this helpful guidance. She also said that she is from Houston.
Okay.
That she is in a good, healthy environment, no worries.
Okay, good. Yes, so all right, maybe we'll leave it at that for today. So Wednesday, we meet again, same time. And there we talk about the second important aspect of Vaishnava etiquette, which will help us to dissolve our false ego. So today was don't defend, don't protect your ego. And Wednesday will be something else. I won't tell you now. Okay?
I'm really sorry. We have only one question left.
Oh,
Devidasi. It is not about false ego, but I see that her waiting. I said that we will come back to it.
Okay, who is that?
Benio Devidasi.
Okay.
I'm sorry that, but I see maybe she will not be able to be on Wednesday or something. I don't know.
Okay, so please let us hear.
Please give a description. What is a senior devotee?
Ugh.
Do it relate to the age or the years? It's a long description, but the general question is that.
Have you got this book?
Got it, but I didn't read it. I read already the spiritual culture book.
Okay. There's a chapter in it too. So in short, we can say the ultimate criteria who is senior is a person's spiritual advancement, you know, Krishna consciousness. But that is not so easy to judge. So therefore we start with external criteria. So that is, for example, when did the person start Krishna consciousness? You know, when did the person get first initiation? When did the person get second initiation? But these are almost material criteria, because the time actually doesn't say much at all, you know. Person can be 40 years in Krishna consciousness, but if they don't apply themselves seriously to the process, they don't do any internal work here of reflecting and introspecting and so on, you know, the person may not have made much progress even after 40 years, you know. So, but we have to start somewhere. So we take that criteria. When did the person join? Then even a person's mere age is a criteria. If a person is like 30 years older, then we respect that person as senior just because of the person's life experience, right? So then we also have managerial position. If a person has a managerial position, he is temple president or whatever, you know, then we also respect him as superior, even though we may be longer in Krishna consciousness. But managerial position is respected as superior. And then we also have the criteria of ashram. For example, the renounced phase of life, sannyas, is always considered superior to grihastha. Even though the grihastha may be a Prabhupada disciple, the sannyasi may not be a Prabhupada disciple. But still, just because he is a sannyasi, he is given respect as being superior. But then also Vaishnava humility, you know, will advise that the sannyasi also should be humble towards the grihastha Prabhupada disciple and see him as superior. Same with the managerial, you know, criteria. If a temple president is, you know, not so long in Krishna consciousness, he will have that Vaishnava humility, hopefully, and consider other people in the community as superior because they have been longer in Krishna consciousness. But ultimately, the criteria is spiritual advancement. And going back to the story with King Rahugana, nice example, you know, that King Rahugana, out of the external position, he is superior. But then when he realized, oh, Jada Bharat, he's actually a great self-realized soul, and he jumps off the palanquin, he takes the humble position, you know, even though he is in a superior position of being the king. So it's a nice example how the ultimate criteria is one's Krishna consciousness, you know. But we cannot so easily judge that. So that's why we accept the external criteria. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur even gives another criteria. He says, who is bigger in body is superior. We don't so often hear about that. But yeah, I mean, if you have a big body, okay. And also Prabhupada says that there's a strong purport where he says, you know, by nature, out of his bodily constitution, a man always wants to be superior of a woman, to a woman. And a woman out of her bodily constitution, she is weaker and therefore she is inferior to a man. Prabhupada says it very clear. I mean, this is, of course, a controversial issue these days in many parts of the world where we, you know, promote this equality and all that. But when you read the Bhagavatam, my God, it's all in there, you know. Prabhupada says it very clearly, you know. He really says, based on his bodily constitution, because as a rule, he is stronger. You know, it means he wants to be in a superior position. Prabhupada says this has to be respected, you know. Very, very strong, Prabhupada's words, you know. So we better come to terms with it, you know. And if we don't identify with being the body, then we, you know, then it's just not so difficult to say, okay, this lifetime I'm driving this woman's vehicle, you know, okay, let me follow the traffic rules and let me, you know, subordinate myself to the men, let them be right and so on. They're driving the tractor, you know. So, you know, not so difficult. It becomes an issue when we identify with the body, when we think I am a woman, you know, then we get all worked up about it and, oh, it's not fair and it's bodily concept. That's what makes us so worked up about this whole equality topic, you know. Okay, anything else? Okay, good. So then let's finish on this note. Please be back on Wednesday. So we have Wednesday one session and then one more next week, Saturday. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us again, and I wish you a good start of the next week, and I'll see you all back on Wednesday. Thank you. Srila
Thank
Prabhupada.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
Hare
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 Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.